Hey y'all, happy Inauguration Day and welcome back to Shootin the Breeze. I'm Micaela and today we're diving into a topic that absolutely thrills me and I hope it gets y'all talking. I am going to be staring right down the barrel of criticizing President Donald Trump and his favorite billionaire other than himself, Elon Musk. What you have to understand though is this is a topic I am thrilled by because I love talking politics. I've mentioned before that for years I worked in the political field, specifically in communications and grassroots, and I still own a small marketing and political consulting company. I know for some, talking politics is considered totally impolite, but for me, it was shop talk for years, something I did on the daily, and something totally comfortable, and I could say fun. It's something I've really missed, too, since leaving the field, or not really leaving the field, but not being surrounded by others who are in the field. That being said, I am not thrilled to criticize Trump just for the sake of it, but I am thrilled to be talking about one of my favorite topics in general. In my opinion, some recent actions by President Trump and Elon Musk seem to undermine the principles of democracy and representation. I also think that these two men have done a lot of great things for our country, so bear that in mind. No matter your political affiliation, I encourage you to go into this episode, and really all episodes, with an open mind. So go ahead, grab your sweet tea, settle into your favorite chair, or, like Dr. Cox suggested last week, go for a walk while you're listening, and let's shoot the breeze. Alrighty, let's start out with Donald Trump. I want to first say I don't have a personal issue with Donald Trump. I think the man is full of a lot of rhetoric that is iffy, but displays on whole a lot more action that's generally really good for our country and our economy. But that's not what this episode is about. I am a registered and active Republican, although in recent years I have become a little more center-right than I considered myself to be in the past. I live in a closed primary state in a very, very conservative district, so I have remained registered with the Republican Party so I can maintain my voice, especially in local elections, which are actually the most important elections to be active in, but that's a topic for another episode. Although I don't outright dislike Donald Trump, I can tell you for a fact he was not my first choice in the 2016 primaries. However, during the election, I was working for the Republican Party and he was the nominee, so I actually campaigned for him in 2016. In subsequent years, I was still working with the party and I helped organize rallies and have even been around him in person. But I like to call it like I see it, so I'm going to openly criticize things that strike me as unconstitutional or anti-democratic. Trump has reshaped American politics. There is no denying that. He has brought issues like immigration and trade to the forefront and energized a base that felt ignored. For more on that, if you haven't read Vice President J.D. Vance's memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, I highly encourage it. I'm not going to lie. The thing that made me crack this book was all the salacious rumors and memes I had seen about it online and in the media. After finishing the book, I'm happy to report they were unsubstantiated. There's absolutely nothing about a couch in that book. The book is about Vance's youth and coming of age in the Rust Belt, specifically in Ohio, and his trips back to Kentucky. It was released the same year as Trump's first win, so it had to have been written prior to his rise to political power, but it kind of helps explain his rise to political power. The book really illustrated why the traditionally democratic blue-collar white male base, and as a result, some of the wives of those men, were so up for grabs in 2016. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. Beyond its political implications, it's a book about human resiliency, the power of a grandmother's love, oh my goodness, and in my opinion, the fact that the American dream is not dead. I guess it's probably going to become a thing where I recommend a book in every episode. So I'm happy I got the suggestion to link those in the show notes, and I will make sure to put a link to this book in today's notes. All right, so back to Trump. His public-facing leadership style and rhetoric often demands loyalty at the expense of healthy debate and representation. He has a habit of harshly criticizing political opponents, even if they're from his own party, if they disagree with him on the smallest thing, and I, for one, find that terribly childish. Obviously, I've never been in his cabinet or on any of those staffs, so I'm not sure if this extends to the back rooms or not. It certainly seems that he puts out policies that require a lot of compromise and many opinions outside of his own. So there's part of me that genuinely hopes this is just more of his business tycoon branding and rhetoric, but I'm not entirely sure it is. I am happy to see he's nominated Marco Rubio, little Marco, to be our next Secretary of State, and it seems he's patched things up with Governor DeSantis. But nobody can forget the names he gave these men when they were running against him and the things he said about them. So I do think it's just, I'm not sure. Is it something he does just when he's disagreeing, or if they bring an idea that's different from his own, is he going to try to dismantle them publicly? So one example of Trump's insistence on loyalty is his recent endorsement of Jimmy Patronis in the race for the 1st Congressional District of Florida, which is where I live. A little background on both Jimmy and the 1st Congressional District of Florida, if you aren't a political junkie like me. So Patronis has been the CFO for Florida since 2017. I also campaigned for him. I have no problem with Jimmy. And prior to that, he served in the Florida House of Representatives from 2006 to 2014. So he is a long-standing politician, and at the level of CFO, he has very close ties to the governor, and so it would seem to Donald Trump. The 1st Congressional District is one of the most reliably read areas in the state. The former representative, if you're not sure, was Matt Gaetz, who I am so happy to see resign. Big round of applause for that. But you can see what I mean when I say there's no shortage of Republicans here who will go to the polls and vote for extreme folks with very right-wing ideas who will pretty much blindly support Trump. The last Democrat to be elected to Congress was a man named Earl Hutto, who served from 1979 to 1995. Everybody say it with me. Term limits for Congress. A note on this, Earl is now a registered independent, and the Democrats of that era are now referred to as Dixiecrats. They aren't the left-wing wokest of today's political spectrum. They were highly attuned to the blue-collar worker and very much supported family values. My point is, the people of this district could easily, very easily, elect someone deeply connected to their needs and their community who would very probably support President Trump. And when I say easily, I don't just mean, I mean probably. They're probably going to elect somebody that's going to support President Trump. You can't drive down the road here without seeing Trump 2024 signs still up. There are currently 10 Republicans running in the primary election and 5 no or minor party affiliated candidates and 1 Democratic candidate. So here's the catch. Patronis, although he's a Republican, is not only not a native of this district. He wasn't born here. He didn't go to school here. He doesn't have a business here. He doesn't even live currently in this district. He's from the neighboring district. While the two districts are very similar, he's not from here. So this begs the question, why wouldn't Donald Trump allow the people of the 1st Congressional District to have an election unhindered by his presidential opinion and his mega personality? He has almost a cult following in some places. I have a word for these people. I call them Trump humpers. Everything he does, they love, even if it's something that principally they've disagreed with in the past. They love Trump. Not me. I like Trump. I like his policies, but I'm going to call it like I see it. The answer, though, is because he personally knows Patronis, and he will be able to demand 100% loyalty from him. Now, I want to make something clear. I have met Patronis, and like I said before, in 2016, in 2016, I was working for the Republican Party, so I helped push through his candidacy. I knocked doors for this man. I think he has done a fantastic job as our CFO. Side note, the CFO of Florida also oversees the Office of the Fire Marshal, and he's done a fantastic job for our firefighters, and that hits close to home. That said, if elected, Patronis could very well serve the district effectively, although I doubt he will be as passionate about projects pertaining to the unique characteristics of this district, like our many military bases, our tourism, fishing, and agriculture industries. What's to stop him from supporting bills and funding that benefit his own neighborhood and the industries in his own district rather than this one? This endorsement reeks of political favors. It's as if Trump is telling me personally, don't go to the debates, don't do your research on the candidates. Heck, you don't even need to go to the polls. The masses of Trump lovers in your district are going to follow me and pick my guy. You don't know who will best represent your interests. I'll decide that for you. This kind of interference doesn't just take away the voice of the people, it undermines the entire purpose of elections. Endorsing someone based on the probability of their undying loyalty to the president and political connections instead of their ties to their community, their merit, and their service to the people is exactly what we do not need. Don't get me wrong, I know that this kind of thing happens in politics all the time. It's not unique to Trump, but one would hope that someone who has always promised to be different, to drain the so-called swamp, would not be so unapologetically upfront about doing the very thing he has for years criticized. I want to believe in Trump. I want to believe in his proclamation of being a businessman and not a politician. But backroom deals playing out so brazenly makes me really angry if you can't tell. It needs to stop, not just with Trump, but across the board. The people deserve leaders who are chosen by them and not for them. Take a breath. Okay. Now, I'm going to pivot to Elon Musk. Much like Trump, he has built a reputation on shaking things up. He is a tech innovator, a self-proclaimed free speech and free thought advocate, and someone who prides himself on challenging norms. In a recent article by the Associated Press, and according to Musk himself via an X post, he intends to have his PAC play a significant role in primaries of the sitting Republicans who aren't loyal to Trump's agenda. I'll link that article in the show notes. To me, this is a very troubling overreach. If you aren't familiar with what a PAC is, very basically, it stands for Political Action Committee. In elections, we have campaign finance laws, and these laws prevent any one individual from donating more than a certain amount of money to any one candidate. It varies based on the election and the office being sought. It's supposed to keep the significantly wealthy from having undue sway on elections. The loophole is PACs. PACs are dark money. Anyone can donate as much as they want to a PAC or multiple PACs who, in turn, support whatever candidates they see fit. In this case, Elon Musk is saying he will donate to people who are opposing anyone that disagrees with Trump. Shady, I know. It's not people who go against the Republican Party platform. No. Just people who stand in the way of Trump's agenda. If you want more info on PACs, DM me and we can chat about that. The bottom line is elections cost money. A lot of money. Even small elections for school board districts can cost upwards of $40,000 if they're competitive. A congressional or Senate election, millions. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. Unless the electorate is highly tuned in and actively participating in grassroots strategies, that's knocking doors, which I can tell you most of the people listening to this podcast have probably not knocked a door for an election. The candidate with the most funding typically will have better name recognition, which will typically lead to a political win. That's not always. There are special circumstances, but usually. So just think about this. We have a billionaire using his wealth to enforce conformity within a political party. The political party we're talking about is the GOP, the big tent party, the everybody's welcome party. It doesn't seem like that anymore. It seems like we should just rename it Trump's party. This is not promoting free thought. It's not promoting loyalty to your constituents, who, by the way, are not all Republicans. That is a total usurpation of the democratic process. It is no different than Trump endorsing Patronis in Florida. It's just got a Silicon Valley spin on it. Musk's influence here is dangerous because it consolidates power in the hands of a few, what we might call oligarchic behavior, at the risk of sounding like Bernie Sanders. But I'm not saying that a society in which you can become a billionaire is an oligarchy. I'm saying billionaires controlling political parties and democratically elected statesmen is oligarchic. Yes. When billionaires decide who gets to run, who gets to win, it totally strips the process of any real accountability to the constituents of a district. To understand why this matters, I need to take you back to 12th grade government. So first, let's recall together what an oligarchy actually is. An oligarchy is a system where power is concentrated in the hands of a small elite group, whether it's politicians, billionaires, or corporation. It is the opposite of a democracy where power rests with the people. But the United States isn't a pure democracy, Micaela. Yes, I know, and I'm going to cover that. We are a constitutional republic. In this system, we elect representatives who are supposed to serve our interest and our district. They are guided by a framework of laws that provide individual rights. The key to this system is accountability, not to a president, but to the electorate. Leaders should answer to the people of their districts, or, since the passing of the 17th Amendment, which I would love to see repealed, another topic for a different episode, to the people of their states. Leaders, especially those in the House of Representatives, should answer to the people, not to the powerful few, and they should not have to toe the line of a president. Don't get me wrong, I understand to a point why Trump is doing this. He is entering his second term, sometimes known as a lame duck term. He has political enemies on both sides of the aisle and wants to leave a legacy. I can understand wanting to get rid of the Cheneys of the Senate. I get that. But the threat that is being leveled by Musk is not people who are against Trump on everything. It's people who don't get in line with Trump. That is too broad to be saying. When Trump demands loyalty over principles, or Musk uses his fortune to enforce political conformity, they are both chipping away at the foundation of our republic. It's not about left or right. It's about preserving the balance of power that keeps our system functioning. So, where do we go from here? I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom. There is something we can do. It starts with us, the voters. And if you aren't a voter, I challenge you to register now. Not tomorrow, not this month, not this year. This is not a good New Year's resolution. Register today. We need to demand leaders who prioritize principles over personalities, who represent the communities they serve, and who are accountable to the people, not the power brokers. So how do we do that? First, make sure you're registered to vote at your current address. Second, read local newspapers, watch local news, listen to local radio above all things, and I'm going to shamelessly plug, listen to local podcasts. This will help you stay up to date on both local and federal elections. When they are, who the candidates are, what's going on between the candidates. Then educate yourself on all the candidates in the race, not just the ones whose name you are seeing everywhere. Because if you are seeing a name everywhere, it likely means that this person is independently wealthy or is backed by some wealthy, powerful individuals. Where would you go about finding the information on these candidates? Throughout our community, there are many groups who put together what are called voting guides. Most are going to be partisan. So there is a group called Heritage Action. They are very, very conservative. There are groups for more liberal leaning, although I probably have not used those ever. Vote 411 is put out by the League of Women Voters, who are nonpartisan, but I would say they lean a little bit more left. Americans for Prosperity is also a nonpartisan group who puts out center-right voting guides, but you will just have to kind of identify what your values are and seek out a voting guide for whoever is running in your area. Number 3. Most supervisor of elections office offer an emailed sample ballot so that you can do your research before an election, not just on the candidates, but on amendments, on proposed tax hikes in your area, on all kinds of things. So I would sign up for that if you can. And then next, if you really like a candidate, I have 2 pieces of advice for you. Number 1, donate. Donate your time, donate your talents, and donate your treasure if you are available. In campaigns, we say there's 3 T's: time, treasure, and talents. We need all of them. Campaigns are hard, grueling work. There is always a shortage of manpower, so even if you don't think you know anything about politics, you can definitely be a help. Even if you don't want to go to doors. I have had people assemble signs for me. I've had people go and grab food for me. I have had people put together paper packets for me. I've had people mark off neighborhoods we've already walked on big giant maps. So there is all kinds of work that needs to be done in campaigns, but sometimes doesn't get done because there's a shortage of manpower. If you're a business owner and you have a resource or talent you could offer to a candidate you really like, consider making what's called an in-kind donation of a service, a location, food, materials. The possibilities are truly endless. And lastly, if you really, really like a candidate, consider donating money to their campaign. Remember that thing I told you about campaigns being expensive? Every donation goes to help propelling your candidate towards victory, even the small ones. Then the number 2 thing you can do if you really like a candidate, stop being shy about talking about politics. Learn your candidate's talking points and share the ones that impact you and your family the most. That's called grassroots campaigning, and it's my favorite form of democracy. And convince people who don't usually vote to come to the polls with you. The special election primary I've been discussing in this episode for the 1st Congressional District occurs on Tuesday, January 28th. That's next week. So if you are not already a registered voter, you'll have to sit this one out. But if you are a registered voter, I highly encourage you to seek out information on all of the candidates. Democrats will not participate in this primary as they have only one candidate vying for the position. They will be participating in the general election in April. But Republicans, you have 10 candidates, not just one, and not just one endorsed by President Trump. So it is vital that you do your research and go make your voice heard. Once elected, the re-election for an incumbent is nearly 95%, and there are no term limits for Congress, as I briefly mentioned earlier. Abraham Lincoln famously said, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." Personally, I believe we are witnessing that in some of these situations. The phenomena around Trump and his personality have emboldened a certain subset of the electorate to turn out en masse to support his notions and whims, sometimes for the good, but not always. This isn't just about Trump or Musk. It is about rejecting a system that allows power to be concentrated in the hands of the few. It's about remembering we are Americans and we have a constitutional republic. It is a beautiful thing, and that the voice of the people matters most, and it's up to us to preserve the strength of that. Alrighty, on to some lighter stuff. I am pleased to bring back this week what y'all had to say. I'm thrilled to share some of the wonderful feedback you guys have sent in, and I'm sorry I missed it last week, but that episode was too good to just throw this in. Your thoughts and insights and encouragement truly make this journey so rewarding and feed my passion for this. All right, so let's dive in. First, on the Proverbs 31 episode, I got a comment from a friend, the friend that I mentioned at the beginning of this journey, who helped me come up with the name. She said, "Amen and amen, sister. I loved this episode and I love that book. I identify with Martha way too often and have to remind myself that what is more important and fulfilling is sitting at the feet of Jesus. Thank you for this podcast. I needed to hear it today." I hear you so much on identifying with Martha. Sitting at the feet of Jesus is such a beautiful reminder for all of us. I have been going through and I have been using Tara Lee Cobble's, which I will link in the show notes, the Bible recap, and actually sitting down and reading my Bible every day, and it has made such a difference in my life this year. Thank you for sharing how this episode spoke to you. It makes my heart so happy to know it resonated, and I hope you all are finding time to sit at the feet of Jesus. Also, I heard it was great. I never knew who the writer of it was, so that alone was a big game changer. I like the perspective of who it's coming from. Could be just how they saw it, but didn't know the reality of all the work behind it. I am so glad you enjoyed the historical context and perspective. I have been learning that is super important when we're reading our Bible. Some of the things in the Bible are descriptive, not prescriptive, and I appreciate verses so much more now that I have a deeper understanding of them. And then I got another great episode. Well, thank you. That was short, sweet, and so encouraging. I appreciate you taking the time to let me know you enjoyed it, Vanessa. On the weight loss episode, I heard, "Great episode. Nice to listen to you and the doctor go back and forth." I am glad you enjoyed the flow. I plan to have more guests on soon. Next week, I'm actually interviewing a guest for a 3-part series that I am so excited about. It felt really natural to just chit-chat with Dr. Cox, and he's such a joy, and I loved how natural the conversation felt. I got another great episode. I appreciate how you and Dr. Cox gave practical and helpful tips for keeping the weight off. Now I'm wishing I had listened to this while walking. That will be my plan for the next episode. I'll put on my AirPods and go for a 30-minute walk. I love this plan. Listening while walking sounds like the perfect way to get inspired and stay active at the same time. Sometimes I listen to music while I'm in the gym, but more often than not, I listen to an audiobook because it helps me pass the time faster. I'm not thinking, oh, another song. I'm just listening to the story. So let me know how that 30-minute walk goes during this episode. And then some general comments I've gotten both online and in person. One comment I have heard over and over and over again is, "You have such a great voice for podcasting." First off, thank you so much. I'll admit I do have a great voice for podcasting, and I also have a great face for podcasting. Just kidding. Kind of. For the curious, I do not use AI to fine-tune my voice, which is another question I've gotten. This is 100% me. And for those wondering where I record, let's just say it's not exactly a professional studio. I'll post a picture to the Instagram, but my studio is actually my youngest 2 sons' nugget cushions all around me, and I use them to soundproof their bottom bunk so that I get good sound. This is the real reason I'm not on camera, not my face for radio. It's my cozy little fort of pillows and blankets. I also received feedback that y'all are enjoying this segment, and I love putting it together. A very special thank you goes out to my Nana. She is in her 80s, but tech savvy enough to listen to every single episode and give me thoughtful feedback. I actually discussed this episode with her in her kitchen, so thank you, Nana. I love you so much, and if you're listening, which I know you are, thank you so much for being my biggest cheerleader. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for all the encouragement from everyone and your insights. Keep those comments coming. They truly, truly mean the world to me. Thanks y'all so much for joining me for another episode of Shootin the Breeze. I know today's episode was maybe uncomfortable for some of you Republicans and Democrats, but hey, you can't say I didn't warn you. I did say we were going to talk about uncomfortable things. The truth is, these are conversations worth having. These are conversations that if we go without having, we may end up just sticking our heads in the sand and give our votes away by default to those with power and money. And I, for one, am just not okay with that. If you have any comments or questions about today's episode, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out via email at shootin.the.breeze247@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram. My handle is at shootin_the_breeze_podcast. You can also share your thoughts by commenting on any platform where the podcast is available, including YouTube, Spotify, Prime Music, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This episode was written and produced by me, Micaela Rollo-Kerwin, with original score by Gavin Horde and graphic design by me. Thank you for listening, and until next time, get educated, get involved, and don't be afraid to shoot the breeze, even if it's calling out your daddy's favorite politician since Reagan. Politely, of course.